You're laughing at the Giannis stuff, but you would have killed me if I said I could guard him one-on-one. Either you want honesty or you don't.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today, Super Bowl Sunday. We are recapping those games from Sunday. We are previewing 10 games for Monday. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Why would you want to watch the Super Bowl? You could watch a fantasy basketball show on YouTube or listen to it on your podcast. That is exactly what you want to do. And that is, of course, if you are listening to this, what you are doing right now. Let's look at those games from early on Sunday. The first one we look at, the Detroit Pistons in overtime get the victory over the Denver Nuggets, 128-123. Big Chungus Nikola Jokic.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, he is. 39, 10, and 11, 3 steals and 2 blocks, 70% from the field, 86 from the line. We just have to accept that if we draft him, he's going to be shit for 6 weeks, and then he's going to be really good, and I think he's going to continue to get better and better. It's a bad loss for Denver. They're still without Jamal Murray, Paul Millsap, Mason Plumlee, and no Michael Porter Jr. in this one, but a big game from Jokic nonetheless. It was also a big game from Monty Morris, who had 19, 7, and 7. He started over Gary Harris. 19, 7, and 7 is really strong for Morris. He's not reliable for that. He hasn't even been starting every game, even with Murray out, but he can be an assist streamer for 12-teamers. While Jeremy Grant played 45 minutes, had 14 points, blocked 3 shots, continues to be really, really strong. But even over his last 20 games, where he's played 30 minutes, he's still not a top 100 player. And that's something to do with percentages. And what he's doing at the moment is really elevated. With Millsap out and with Plumlee out, when they come back, I just don't think he can keep up this level of production. So I would look to see if I could get off him in a trade. Will Barton had 20 and 9 with 5 assists, while Malik Beasley had 12 points in 24 minutes. Torrey Craig struggled in another start. For the Pistons, interesting in here, Markieff Morris was out, so Sekou Doumbouya went from out of the rotation entirely to being a starter and playing 35 minutes. Over Thon Maker. Apparently he only needed 1 game out of the rotation to get things fixed, according to your mate Dwayne Casey. 17 points for Sekou in those 35 minutes with 5 rebounds and not much else. I'm not adding him in 12-team leagues on the back of this performance. Derrick Rose, 13 minutes before leaving with groin soreness. We're all worried about Rose with injuries. The trade deadline coming up, the increased minutes are always a concern. That's why I've been banging the shit out of the drum of him being a sell high. Hopefully this isn't a serious injury. We've got about 5 days to the trade deadline. I worry where his value is going to be as we move forward. He is, so far this season, the 74th ranked player. That could fall off really, really quickly depending on what happens in the next few days. 34 minutes for Reggie Jackson. That's huge. And this is a bloke who Casey wouldn't even play over Ish Smith and play him like 27 minutes a night. Now he's rolling him out 34 minutes a night and saying, Reggie, do whatever you want. 20 points for Jackson on a usage of 25%, 6 assists. He's not this good of a player usually. If you want to add him, by all means. I don't trust it, but this is strong pretty obviously. While Svi Mikhailuk had 13 points with 4 assists and 2 steals. I really like what Svi's doing. The problem is, when Kennard comes back, does he have this level of playing time? The answer to that is probably no. The big avocado, Andre Drummond, had 21 and 17, while the shark, Bruce Brown, Baby Shark, 19, 10, and 8. And of course, there was no Luke Kennard, there was no Derrick Rose. But if this is what's going to happen with Brown when Rose is, or if Rose is traded, then sign me up. I'm all about it. It's a few days to go. Maybe you take a flyer on adding him. This does feel a little bit like an outlier, especially though with the 70% shooting. The Crucifix had 11 and 4. Christian Wood in 16 minutes with 2 steals. These are minutes. These are non-Drummond minutes only. We've gone back to that nonsense. If after Thursday Drummond isn't traded, I don't see how you can continue to roster Christian Wood, the 142nd ranked player over the last 20 games, because he's been playing only 20 minutes. That's not good enough to be holding on to, and I don't think the Pistons are just going to shut down the mythical shutdown of Andre Drummond. So I think after the deadline, we see what happens, and Wood may become a drop when we get to that, if that is in fact the case. Let's go on to the next game. We're looking at the Phoenix Suns. They got pummeled by the Milwaukee Bucks, 129-108. There was no ravishing Rick Rubio. There was no Dario Saric. There was no Aaron Baines. There was no Frank Kaminsky. There was no Cam Johnson. So that's a shit ton of players out of their rotation, no doubt. Devin Booker, 32-7-6, another great game from him. Elite efficiency stuff there. Well, Javon Carter really stepped it up with Rubio out. 15 points, 3 triples, and 3 steals. Now, Elie Kobo started for Rubio. He did absolutely nothing, and he'd been almost out of the rotation with Carter getting the bulk of those minutes. Now, I don't think that this is a realistic expectation for Carter, but if you're looking for steals and you just lost someone like a Kris Dunn and you're looking for a steal specialist, Javon can be that guy. 20 and 14 for Ayton with a steal and a block. You're pretty ho-hum, especially the 37% shooting. And I say ho-hum, like 20 and 14 is great, but it could have been better, and there's just no peripherals there as well. You need more. Well, speaking of peripherals, that's what McCall Bridges does. 2 steals and 2 blocks. 7 points on 9 shots is pretty rough, but if you roster him for steals, and everything else is a bonus. Do not rely on anything else. Cheick Diallo also stepped up with Saric and Baines out. He had 11 and 7 in 26 minutes, while Okobo had only the 2 points in the 26 minutes that he played. For the Milwaukee Bucks, Brook Lopez, 17 points in 33 minutes with 9 blocks. That is huge. That is a game-changing number in that category that could have won it for you this week. There was times where people were dropping him in 12-team leagues, which is absolute foolishness. Needs to be rostered in all leagues pretty clearly. Chrissy Middleton, 25, 8 and 6, while Yanni had 30 and 19 with 9 assists and a 111. Of course, he defecated on your free throw percentage. 9 of 16 from the line there for Yanni. Your mate, the Big Ragu, Dante DiVincenzo, 15 points in 22 minutes with 2 steals. Continues to look really good. Just give him 30 minutes at this point. Wes Matthews is trash. He had 2 points in 14 minutes. Big Ragu is a guy that does have 12-team league value. In the last 20 games, he's the 93rd ranked player. He's 113th over the course of the season in limited minutes, mainly on the back of steals. So that's what you should be looking at. But he can score. He can hit threes. He can get assists. I think he's a top 70 player in the making, maybe even top 50. Really, really like what he's doing. And that's probably going to be as early as next season. Eric Bledsoe, 12, 7 and 4. Pretty solid from him. Well, not much else really happening there with the Bucks in that absolute beatdown of the Phoenix Suns. The next game up, we look at the Pelicans and the Rockets. The Rockets get the win, 117-109. Lonzo Ball. Now, this is a line you don't see very often. He almost had a Richie Beno and a triple-double. 10 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 threes, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 43% shooting, hit both his free throws. He has been really, really, really good. He is the 34th ranked player over his last 20 games. That's obviously really impressive. He can push further than that. He's a clear must roster player. And for everyone who always criticizes, Josh, why do you like Lonzo? He's a bust, he's shit. This is why I like him. This is it. This is what I've been seeing for 2.5 years. He's never going to be a 20-point per game scorer, but that doesn't preclude him from being a top 25 fantasy guy. This is why I liked him. Brandon Ingram, the usage way back up here, 28%, 28 and 12. But interestingly, post-game, Alvin Gentry was really pissed. He didn't like the fact that Zion didn't get touches in the fourth quarter. So you might think that some of those touches that Brandon Ingram was getting are going to go towards Williamson. He hit 5 threes as well here, Brandon. But that is a little bit of a worry, those comments from Gentry, who was pretty pissed. Zion, despite the lack of touches, had 21 and 10 with a steal on a block. He's going to be a first rounder next season. Whether he deserves to be a first rounder remains to be seen, but he will be drafted in the first round next season. He is a number 1 overall upside dynasty player. While Josh the Hitman Hart, 16 and 10 in 30 minutes. We're seeing a lot more 4 guards with Zion lineups, and Hart is benefiting from that. He's taking minutes away from JJ Redick. He's taking minutes away from Derek Favors, and Hart is on the borderline of a 12-team pickup. As for Favors, he's still a hold, but it is falling off at the moment. 9 and 11 in 24 minutes, while Redick only played the 14 minutes and put up a fat Tony Snell, 14 with absolutely nothing else. And Drew Holiday, bit of a stinker from him, 11, 3 and 6. Jackson Hayes, not sure anyone was sucking his dick after this game. 2 points in 4 minutes for him as he loses minutes to Malley in the rotation. For the Rockets, Jimmy Harden, Is he back? He's back. 40, 10, and 9, 7 triples, 50% shooting, 9 of 9 from the line. The greats don't stay down too long, although it was a rough month or so for Jimmy, but he is back in business, and yeah, he is the number one fantasy guy. Benny McLemore played well the last 2 games. Don't buy it. 22 points with 4 triples for Ben. Just a deep league 3-point streamer, while Eric Gordon had 9 points, and those 4 steals is really what gave him any value in this game. Only a deeper league guy. I don't know where I saw this, but someone asked me, hey, Eric Gordon, is he a top 70 guy the rest of the season? Maybe they meant to say top 170, and maybe I could get behind that. He is not a top 100 guy under any sort of circumstance. Not even close to it. Russell Westbrook, 22, 6, and 7. The shot wasn't there, but he hit his free throws. One of his worst games recently, and that's still pretty good. While Dan House doubled, and he's playing pretty well in that small lineup with PJ Tucker at the 5. 12 and 12 for Housey with 2 threes. He had some good defensive numbers the other day. He's not a must-roster guy, but he is back in 12-team discussions with this Capella injury. PJ Tucker was gross. 0 points in 39 minutes with 9 rebounds. Missed all 5 of his shots. He is not, I repeat, not a 12-team league player. The next game, which was the last game of the day, it was your Chicago Bulls losing to the Toronto Raptors 129-102. There was no Wendell Carter, there was no Lauri Markkanen, there was no Otto Porter, and now Kris Dunn has a tear in his MCL. There's no timetable released. I would guess 4 to 6 weeks would be my estimation for Dunn, but we don't know that at this point. At this stage, I think we rule him out for the week and we see where we go. With him out, Chandler Hutchison started. He did okay. 17 points in 28 minutes with 5 rebounds. A solid 16-team league ad, absolutely. 14 teams, probably. 12s, I'm not so sure about that. Thad had 21 and 7 in his 30 minutes. He's a 12-teamer, while Levine had 18, 7 and 7 with 3 steals. Dan Gafford returned. He suffered a big fall early on and did come back in the end, even though he didn't look right, because if there's one bloke who knows anything about medical stuff and injuries less than Tom Thibodeau, it's Thumbelina, the coach of the Chicago Bulls, who doesn't call timeouts when his blokes are on the court writhing in agony. When a guy's clearly hurt in junk time, he puts them back in. Just this Chicago Bulls whole medical department and coaching is and front office and ownership and literally everything about the franchise, apart from the people who are the good fans and the players, is a disaster. And it has been a disaster for a long time. Shout out to Luol Deng almost dying. Just so many mistakes continually made by this team. It is baffling. Big Shaq Harrison.
Big Shaq.
He only played 4 minutes, but he had 2 steals. If he gets a 15-minute-a-night role, he has value as a steal streamer. He just gets them. While Kobe White had 12 points with 4 triples in his 25 minutes, and Satoransky had 8, 5, and 5. A pretty rough shooting night. Luke Cornett had 8 and 5, and if this coach had any idea, he'd be out of the rotation as soon as Gafford could play minutes. But again, Thumbelina is in charge. For the Raptors, how about big Terence Davis? With Norm Powell out, it was Davis that stepped up. 31 points, 6 triples. Of course, he shot 80%, which is never going to happen on a consistent basis, but he's good. He could be the bigger beneficiary versus him or the Jedi.
Hello there.
I think in a 16-teamer, you grab Davis, and probably in a 14-teamer. In a 12, he's more of a stream guy, while Anunoby was bad. 4 points in 21 minutes, and if that's what it's going to be with Powell out, then there's no need to grab him in a 12-teamer. I still wouldn't hate it, because I think he'll probably do more than this most games, but that was rough. 17 and 9 for Siakam, 12, 4 and 8 for Van Vliet, 14, 4 and 6. This team did not have to exert themselves at all. We even got 25 Waterboy minutes. Chris Boucher, 15 and 5 with 2 steals in the blowout, but of course that's because Ibaka only needed to play 25 minutes. So don't get too worked up here about the Waterboy. He's just a deeper league guy, while Mark Gasol is sidelined, and any of those 23 minutes that Pat McCaw gets, they should just be better off going to literally any other player on the roster. I cannot believe how often he gets minutes on this Raptors team. Let's look now at some injury news across the league, and there were some pretty big ones across the weekend. Kyrie Irving with a knee strain. That is never a good sign for Irving. At this point, he's out for a week. You'd have to be pretty optimistic to expect him back before the All-Star game. So I reckon 2 weeks, and then that gives him about 3 weeks off, which seems about right. They have ruled out an ACL tear from what I understand for Irving. This is going to, of course, boost Spencer Dinwiddie back into that starting role. Garrett Temple gets more minutes. A lot of people ask me, does this mean Karis LeVert's an ad? I'd be pretty skeptical about what we've seen from LeVert so far. It does give him an extra opportunity, of course, and if you've got that flyer and you don't want to take it on someone else, by all means do it, but I'm not rushing to go grab LeVert with how bad he has been this season. Kris Dunn, again, the MCL tear. You're looking at someone like Hutchison stepping in there, maybe Big Shaq, maybe Ryan Archer-Jacquino, but Hutchison's probably the ad, but it's not really a 12-team league guy. Tony Warren Jr. banged his head. He's out for Monday's game. It'll probably be Justin Holiday and Doug McDermott to take the slack there. Not really guys that I'm looking at as 12-teamers. Holiday maybe a 14-teamer. And Cam Reddish also dealing with a concussion. That gives a little bit of extra value to someone like Vince Carter and DeAndre Hunter for those deeper leagues. Maybe we get some more Jeff Teague minutes and Kevin Huerter Vanderpants minutes as well. No clear real pickup there in Atlanta. While Trae Young hurt his ankle, he looks like he'll be fine and ready to go for Monday's game, if not the game after. Other injury news, Kemba Walker is out with a knee injury. He's going to miss Monday's game. He's already missed one game. There's going to be concerns with that, and I think some minutes limits. Maybe instead of playing 35, he plays 32. That's the understanding I get regarding Walker and his knee, which is a little bit concerning. I'd expect some of his production to drop off. Derrick Rose hurt his groin today. Julius Randle dealing with a quad issue. If he is out, you would expect Punch Bob to get the start there in New York. That's Bobby Portis for those of you who are uninitiated. He should get that start and be a short-term streamer. Well, the update came through on Steph Curry, and I tweeted this out, and a lot of people go, hey, Josh, of course, we knew he was out too much. Yes, we did. But what I was meaning, and the report came out, hey, the Warriors are going to have an update on Steph Curry before the game, and multiple people, hey, does this mean he's coming back early? Hey, what's happening with Steph? Is he out for the season? Is he coming back early? Maybe they're pushing him in earlier. And a lot of people ask that question. So when I tweeted out, hey, not good news on the update, I know that he was supposed to be out until March. The fact that the update came out and people got excited, it wasn't good news. When I say it was not good news, it wasn't me saying it was bad news. It's me saying that it wasn't good news. It wasn't a positive. It was just it was an update that meant absolutely nothing. Now, Curry thinks March 1st. The Warriors seem to think he'll be reevaluated in March, so I expect him to come back at some point there. I do not think that they sit him out for the season. I'll tell you why. I think that the benefit of getting 6 weeks of him playing with D'Angelo Russell is way more important than tanking for losses. They are losing anyway. The lottery odds are flattened. The top of the draft is weak. There is not one player where I've got to get the most odds so I can get my hands on James Wiseman, LaMelo Ball. Like, there's no one at the top there. Any of those, there's like 5 or 6 guys in that mix there. I think the benefit of having Curry and Russell work together to see what happens so you can work out what you want to do in the offseason is way more important than losing a couple of games, not having Steph play, maybe pissing him off so that you can get a shot at Cole Anthony. Like, I don't really... Like, there's no... It's not Zion. It's not Anthony Davis. It's not Cade from next season. It's not those guys who you go, this is my number one guy that I've got to get. And even if you do get the worst record... You got flat odds amongst the 3 worst records, and the Warriors were losing with Steph at the beginning of the season. So there is, that's how I would view it as a team. That's how I would view it as a general manager. It's how I would view it if I was Steph. I'd want to get out there and play. So there are too many things, I think, working in amongst that for him just to be shut down for the entire season. I could be very wrong on that. That's how I view it. And when I discuss all these things, I like to try and use logic as to what the decision would be. Now, when you've got numbnuts like David Fizdale or Jim Boylan running things and making decisions, logic often goes out the window. But I think with this one, this logic will hold true. We will see, of course, how everything plays out, but that's how I'm viewing the Steph Curry hand situation. Let's move in now and talk the DFS action for Monday. We're going to be looking at DraftKings pricing for these games. First game we look at, the Dallas Mavericks and the Indiana Pacers. No spread for this one. Kristaps Porzingis, he missed the last game. He was resting with his knee injury. He should be back and ready to go in this one. While, as I just mentioned, Tony Warren is out for the Pacers. With that concussion, Victor Oladipo still on his minutes limit. No Luka Doncic for Dallas as well. At point guard, Malcolm Brogdon's at 6,300. I really like that price for Broggo. Now, this matchup's a little bit of a negative for point guards, but I do like Brogdon at that salary. Delon Wright at 5,200 had 27 points last game in 29 minutes. I think his minutes are decent. He's more of a tournament guy with how he's been used, while the burner Jalen Brunson is up to 6,000, and that's because he dropped 45 in 27 minutes. Now, I don't know if Carlisle is going to dick us around hard in this one. He could. But I still like Brunson at that salary. While Oladipo at 59, he just can't shoot at the moment. That's really tough to get behind. Timothy John McConnell's at 41, probably not. While Barea at 4,400 went from a starter to out of the rotation. Maybe we look at him. If we hear that he's starting, you throw him in a GPP, but that's about it. Jeremy Lamb's at 49. He should get some extra minutes with Warren out. That would make him a tournament play, but tournament play only. Hardaway's doing nothing while Brokoff at 34. I don't mind Brokoff at 34. I just think the upside's a little bit too low. Juzza Holiday's at 3,700. He should get the start in place of Warren. He should be looking at 20 plus points, which at 3,700 is good value. I like Justin Holiday there. Well, Dougie McDirt is at 39. He's had some big games this season. A few games ago, he had a 33-pointer, which is a strong performance from him. I don't think it's something we should rely upon, but there is that extra opportunity there with Warren going down, while Dorian Finney-Smith also putting up some strangely big numbers. 45 points in the last one from Finney-Smith. That's not something that is all that reliable, and that $6,100 salary for him is just too high. At centre, Miles Turner's down at 4,900. That's really cheap for Turner. We know he struggles at times to get there, but I do like the tournament value there. While Porzingis at 7,000 looks to be a pretty good option to me, especially in a tournament. Sabonis at 9,600, probably pushed a little bit too high up there with that salary. And then you got Maxi Kleber and Will Cauley-Stein. Now, Kleber had 39 last game with Porzingis out, but we know that Carlisle refuses to play them together, so that's a little bit tougher to use. While Cauley-Stein played 26 minutes in place of Porzingis as well. At 4,200 maybe for a tournament, but they haven't really shown much trust in him when KP has been healthy. All right, on to the next game. We look at the Orlando Magic and the Charlotte Hornets. The Magic are 4.5-point favorites, and the total is 205. Really low total. Paul Washington Jr. is doubtful. Evan Fournier is questionable for Orlando. Now, Fournier is out. You get Carter Williams and you get Terence Ross. Probably Wes Iwundu, all getting a minutes boost there in that scenario. At point guard, Malik Monk's at 4,400. The minutes have been really good for him, 32 minutes in the last one. He hasn't really produced at a high level, but that, I think, is only a matter of time away. He had a 50-point game not that long ago, and if he's getting 30 minutes a night, there is a real chance for a 30 or 35-pointer here from Monk. So at 4,400, he does present value, while Markelle Fultz is at 5,400, more of a cash guy than an upside tournament guy, but against the Hornets, it does work in his favor. As for Carter Williams at 3,700, I feel good about him getting to 20. That gives him value, and then if we do hear Fournier's out, it does boost his value up pretty significantly. Devontae Graham has been really disappointing of late, averaging under 30 over his last 5. At 7,500, there are much better ways of spending that, while 6,700 for Terry Rozier, also been a little bit underwhelming, but I don't hate that as much as I do with Devontae. Cody Martin's at 31. He's getting minutes, but I don't really care about that. While Terry Ross at 47 has been yuck, averaging 16 DraftKings points over his last 3. But the minutes are there and the opportunities are going to be there. And at 4,700, he could very easily have a 40-pointer. That puts him firmly in the GPP realm. I don't like Fournier at 6,100, irrespective of if he plays or not. Well, of course, I don't like him if he doesn't play. Aaron Gordon's at 61. Finally had a good game last time out. And to be fair to Gordo, he's been shit in category leagues, but his value to salary ratio in DFS has been okay. He's averaging almost 30 a game over the last 5, which is totally fine. And no reason to think, again, if Fournier's out, that he can't be a value option at that salary. So I think he's all right there. While Miles Bridges is cranking it up. Dropped 41 last time. He's averaging 35 over the last 3. He's sub 6,000. With Washington out, he plays more at the 4, which I think suits him better. That is an option there at 5,800. Iwundu and Batum, no, thank you. Marvin Williams at 3,300. I think his upside is really limited, and he was pretty poor the last time out there, last game when Washington sat. But at 3,300, he can get to 20. That's enough value for me. I think he's an okay cash guy if you're looking for that cheap option out there. Bill Hernan-Gomez at 3,900, not really caring. While Nikola Vucevic at 8,800. You love the matchup. You love when centers go up against the Hornets, and he is a center going up against the Hornets. So I do like Vuce here, while Cody Zeller dropped almost triple-double. Had 48 points last time out. That's a pretty significant level of fluke in that one from Zels. But with how he is playing and with Washington out, I think that gives him a little bit of a boost. But again, 5,700 for Zeller is probably just a little bit too high. Ken Birch is at 3,200. He is the king at the moment of doing absolutely nothing with his minutes. The next game, the New York Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Knicks are 1-point favorites on the road, and the total is 217. Julius Randle is questionable. Brandon Knight is doubtful. Frank Ntilikina is questionable, while they'll welcome back Lord Alfred Payton, who was suspended last game. And Mitchie Robinson is probable with bilateral hamstring soreness, so that is not a good sign. Maybe that was why his minutes were low, not that the organization is full of numbnuts. At point guard, the Padawan, Colin Sexton, 6,600. He just feels like he gives us 35 a night, so I am in on that. While Lord Alfred Payton at 65 also is a 30-plus guy most nights. Both of those guys look pretty strong, while Darius Garland at 54 is only a tournament guy and even not a strong one at that. Dennis Smith started last game. He won't start this game, so you can leave him alone. Kevin Porter's at 45. I'm in on it. They're giving him minutes. They're giving him shots. It's not really being all that efficient at the moment. But if it is, he'll smash that number, so I like Porter here. Reggie Bullock at 36, no thank you. Damian Dotson at 33, double the no thank yous on those ones. And then at small forward, Marcus Morris at 66. He's upped his production back up again. I think he's more of a cash guy than a tournament guy, but there's still something there. While Chetty Osman, there is not anything there. Same with the Fort, Kevin Knox. Although Knoxy, if Randall is out, maybe they push him into extra minutes. But even then, he doesn't do anything when he gets the minutes. Hence why he doesn't get the minutes. Kevin Love's at 7,100. I really like him in this matchup. He's playing pretty solid minutes. He's putting up 35 a night. What the hell more could you ask for at 7,100? While Mitchie Robinson is at 5,000. Give him 30 minutes. He'll smash it. Give him what the Knicks' usual bullshit is, and he won't. That makes him really risky to use. While Tristan Thompson's losing a ton of value. 5,300 his salary is down to. His minutes are down. His production's down. I don't feel good about that. While Randall's at 85. Maybe a little bit too high for Randall at 8,500. While Larry Nance at 54 looks pretty good to me. Punch Bob's at 37, and I'd be all about Punch Bob if Randall is out. That is a super cheap price in that situation. Let us move on now. The next game up, we have got the Golden State Warriors and the Washington Wizards. The Wizards are 5-point favorites, and the total is an absolutely mammoth 236. D'Angelo Russell has just popped up on the injury report as questionable. If he is out, you're going to get a boost to Jordan Poole, to Alec Burks, Glenn Robinson, Damian Lee. All those guys get a boost. For the Wizards, Rui Hachimura and Flaming Mo Wagner. Wagner, they're both not on the injury report, so we assume they both played. Now, how the hell this rotation is going to look is really interesting. Jordan McRae is out, but will Mahinmi still get minutes with Wagner back and Hachimura back? Where the hell will Bryant fit? There are so many questions. Is Isaac Bonga out? Is Gary Payton out? Thankfully, yes. Hopefully, maybe, yes. Who are they going to start at power forward? Is Troy Brown's minutes going to go? It's really a mess, this Wizards team, with those two guys. It gets a bit surprisingly coming back together. Hachimura with his ball sack and Wagner with that back injury, or that ankle injury that's kept him out for a month plus. Wagner, interestingly, had that ankle injury and happened just after Bryant's injury. Bryant had a fracture in his foot, and he's back before Wagner, which is not great. At point guard, Burks at 53. I like it. I absolutely love it if Russell is out. While Ish Smith at 49 and Isaiah Thomas at 42, I don't really see the value there. Russell at 89, probably pushing a little bit too high, especially if he's dealing with an injury. And Draymond Green, don't look now, but Draymond's averaging 40 points over the last three. He's at 6,500, and you feel okay about using it. I'm not absolutely sold on it, but I feel okay about it. Gary Payton, the big mitten, no thank you. Shooting guard Bradley Beal, 10-1, absolutely roasting. His lowest score in his last five has been 51. That is super value. This matchup's great. Beal should be able to at least push close to 60, I think, here. So I like him significantly in this matchup. Damian Lee at 5,700, probably just a little bit too high, while Jordan Poole at 3,000. Not the worst GPP option because he's going to shoot. And if they go in, he could have a 25-pointer. And at 3,000, that's really, really good value. That is only a weird GPP flyer, but I think it's in play. Troy Brown's at 5,200. I think he's just going to get too squeezed with everyone coming back, so I'm not in on that one. Isaac Bonga, no thank you. While the little dog, Glenn Robinson, at $5,000. He's been relatively consistent of late, and that's not something we've said for him very often. And at 5,000, I don't mind that cash value for him. I think that's worth looking at for Robinson. The triangle Eric Pascal at 41, just not enough playing time happening there for him. On to your big blokes. The tank Tom Bryant's at 58. He's been getting 30 a night, but the return of Wagner and Hachimura, what are they going to do with his minutes? Only for tournaments, and even then I'm not confident. Mahinmi I have zero confidence in, while Marquise Kris at 5,500 looks okay for cash in a matchup which should suit him, while Hachimura in his first game back, not interested. Same with the Wizard Amari Spellman, and same with Kevon Looney. There's a lot of real weird unknowns in this matchup in general. The next game is the Boston Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks. Enes Kanter is questionable. Marcus Smart is questionable for Boston with a thigh injury. Kemba Walker is out. So if we're going to have Marcus Smart out as well, you're going to get Brad Wanamaker, Javonte Green, way more handling for Hayward and Tatum and Brown in those scenarios. With Kanter out, you get Grant Williams, Shemi Ojale, and Daniel Tice getting the boost. For Atlanta, Cam Reddish is out. DeAndre Hunter is questionable. DeAndre Bembry is doubtful. Bruno Fernando is questionable. Trae Young is questionable. In fact, the whole friggin' team seems to be injured for the moment. Jabari Parker's out. Alex Len's out. If Fernando is out, it's going to be Damian Jones who gets that value. If Hunter and Reddish are out, that wing spot is really interesting. That means a lot of minutes for Herder. And then throw in if Trae Young's out, that means Jeff Teague is going to have to play a lot.
My name is Jeff.
Vince Carter's going to have to play a lot. We're going to have to get some Brandon Goodwin getting in there. There are a lot of weird situations there with Atlanta that could happen. Now, I do expect Hunter to play, and I expect Young to play. Bruno, I'm not sure about. At point guard, this is assuming that all those questionable guys play. Jeff Teague's at 3,900. I do like him with upside of Reddish being out, Hunter maybe being out, and Young maybe being out. That's a pretty strong price for Jeff Teague. While Trae Young's at 10,000. Against a hard defense to go up against with an ankle injury, I'd fade Young at that price. While Wanamaker's at 36. If Smart is out, that looks really strong. He had a big dunk last game against Embiid. He had 26 points in 26 minutes. He could have to play 30 at a sub $4,000 price. That would work for me. While Marcus Smart at 66, I think that looks pretty okay outside of the injury. Shooting guard, Fanapants is at 5,400. He had 30 points last game and looked pretty good in that situation. Probably still more just tournaments with these injuries. Well, Jaylen Brown at 76 looks really good to me in this. I think he could absolutely smash in this matchup. At small forward, Grant Williams is a no. Vince Carter is a maybe, but probably a no. I love Jason Tatum at 7,500. DeAndre Hunter at 44 I think he's not a bad option here. He's been playing a little bit better, and the opportunities are going to be there for him if he happens to play. While Gordon Hayward's at 7,900. He had just under 20 points against the Sixers, which is obviously rough. He can bounce back. The matchup is super good for him at 7,900. I think he's an option, but I'd prioritize him behind Tatum and behind Jaylen Brown. For your big man, Johnny Collins, the Baptist, 8,300. Just lock him in for 40. I'm here with it. Enes Kanter, no, thank you. While Bruno Fernando at 3,700, tough to get behind that. And Daniel Tice at 56. That salary is prohibitive. Damian Jones at 44. If we hear Fernando is out, I think Jonesy at 4,400 is absolutely someone that we can consider. The next one is the Phoenix Suns. It is the Brooklyn Nets, the Suns on a back-to-back. We don't know if Šarić is playing. We don't know if Ty Jerome is playing, who missed today's game with a calf injury. We don't know if Ravishing Rick Rubio is playing. So there are quite a few doubtful situations or up-in-the-air situations with this Suns team. If Rubio is out, we look at Javon Carter as the major beneficiary. Chet Diallo, if Šarić is out, he's the beneficiary there. I don't really look at Okobo as anything more than a GPP guy in that scenario. Rubio's at 5,500, and the matchup's really solid. If he is ready to go, that's fine, but he has been struggling with that ankle, so there is absolutely some risk in using Rubio. With Kyrie Irving out for Brooklyn, Karis LeVert at 47 at least comes back onto the radar, but he is averaging 15 points in the last 5. That is rough as shit. Whether he can turn something on and get some more minutes and touches and play better, I don't know. I'd only want to use him for tournaments. Well, Dinwiddie at 8,000, absolutely, let's go. He's a 45-ish point guy, I think, here. Really love Spence. Well, Garrett Temple at 4,000, he's going to get opportunities with Kyrie out. We saw him perform relatively well at the beginning of the season, so I think that Garrett is absolutely worth a look. While Devin Booker at 86, absolutely love what he's been doing. And Carter at 3,000, that salary's so good for Javon. He dropped 31 today, and there is value in him, especially if Rubio is out. At shooting guard, Smokin' Joe Harris finally got something happening last game, but I wouldn't trust it really at all. While McCall Bridges at 45 is not a good DFS option in my opinion. For your small forward, you're looking at Kelly Oubre, who's at 7,100. Really strong floor play with some upside as well. You got Dario Saric at 34, who was the opposite of all those things I just said about Oubre. Same as Rowdy Rodion's Kurucs. At big men spots, Ayton's at 7,700. Absolutely love it. We love centers going up against the Nets. He shot like 37% today and still had 45 points. Absolutely love Ayton here. DeAndre Jordan had a good game last time, but I don't really trust him at 4,700. Jarrett Allen's also tough to get behind at a 6,700 elevated salary, while the artist formerly known as Taurean Prince is so up and down. He's at 5,100. He's only a GPP option, and Baby Neck Wilson Chandler is not even that. Next up, the Sixers, the Heat. Can the Sixers win a game on the road? It doesn't appear so. They lost to the Celtics. They lost to the Hawks. The Heat are 3.5-point favorites, and the total is 213 points here for this one. Joshie Richardson is out. We know that much. Justice Winslow is out as well. At point guard, Kendrick Nunn's at 46. He came back from his Achilles soreness and played only 17 minutes, so that is obviously a worry. I'd only be using him for tournaments, and even then, not that keen. 9,100 for Benny Simmons. He's more of an 8,000 guy at the moment. I'm not keen on him at that sort of a salary, while the Iron Shoulder at 55, Goran Dragic, not in this matchup. Shake Milton's at 51. That salary has jumped up pretty significantly. At that sort of a salary, he's a little bit harder to get behind, I believe. And then at shooting guard, Butler's at 8,100, has not done well against Philadelphia. His recent games are not really at that 40-point level. I think we can find better options, while the Spur Dunk Robinson's at 44 is not a DFS guy. And Tyler Hero's at 49. Played well last game, but I don't think there's any way we can trust his level of production. Furky from Turkey and Matisse Thybulle, the painter. Really hard to rely upon those guys. I wouldn't want to use them in DFS. Toby Harris is at 6,900.
Giggity.
Yeah, he is. Bit down lately, Toby, with Embiid back. I think it's taking a little bit of the edge off. I would want to go in other directions apart from him. Derek Jones is not that direction that I would want to go into. And then for the centers and power forwards, Joel Embiid's at 9,200. He has had a history of putting up big games against Miami. 54 average the last 3 times. I am okay to use Embiid here. Bam Adebayo's at 84. I think the Embiid matchup turns me away from using Bam. Horford at 63 is too expensive. Jim Johnson and Myers Leonard are not options for me to use here. Next up, the Detroit Pistons, the Memphis Grizzlies. The Pistons, Derrick Rose hurt his ankle, so his groin today. Markieff Morris missed today with a hip injury, while Brandon Clark is also dealing with hip soreness. If Rose is out, and I guess there is also a possibility that Reggie Jackson sits out the back-to-back, you're going to be loading up on Svi Mikhailiuk and Bruce Brown, the Shark.
Baby shark,
If Morris is out, Siku is likely going to get more of those minutes, but he's a little bit tough to trust. If Clark is out, it's going to be Solomon Hill, maybe Josh Jackson, who gets a boost there. But Jackson put up 28 minutes last game. I think with Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. back, who missed last game, it's going to be harder for for Josh Jackson, not Jaren Jackson, to get those sort of minutes. At point guard, the wave pool, D'Anthony Melton's at 3,600. Been a little bit down lately, but I think there is good GPP value in him there. While Ja Morant at 68, I'm all about Ja at that sort of a salary. Reggie Jackson's at 47. If he plays and Rose is out, that is a good option for me. I'd be all about using Reggie at that salary if he plays and Rose is sidelined. Just as I'm recording this, I see that Brandon Clark is not on the injury report anymore for the Grizzlies, so he is ready to go and right to play. Brown at 3,800. He had 47 points today, Bruce Brown, so that would obviously be a great option along with Reggie Jackson. At shooting guard, Dylan Brooks is at 5,900. The last couple of Brooksy have been a little bit down. I do think that there is value in him, but maybe more of a tournament guy, but I don't hate him in cash. While Svi at 38 is a great GPP guy. I wouldn't care for Galloway or Snell. Siku's at 3,000 minimum salary. He beat that today. I don't see how we can trust him, so I'd probably leave him alone. While Jay Crowder's at 48 and...
sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
I don't think we can get behind that really at all. For the big man, Jaren Jackson's at 6,100. Really, really like that salary. We know that big men abuse Andre Drummond, so Jackson looks in real play, as does Jonas Valanciunas at 7,100. He should be good for 35, 36 here, maybe 40 points for Jonas. I like the matchup. With the big avocado himself, 9,400. Despite how many points he gives up to opponents, he's still giving us consistently close to 50, and the matchup for him is also positive. While Brandon Clark's at 5,000, I just don't think he's really the DFS guy, nor is the crucifix Christian Wood, just too unpredictable with the low minutes. Next game, we have got the Sacramento Kings. They're hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Kings are 1.5 point favorites, and the total here is 228. Rashawn Holmes is doubtful, while the Undertaker Dwayne Dedmon is questionable with an illness that kept him out of last game. Now, last game we saw someone by the name of Eric Mika play around 20 minutes, and Harry Giles starts. If Dedmon is out, you would imagine that those guys would get those minutes, but we don't know that at this point. But that is, it makes things a little bit weird with that team. Now, they don't have Dedmon listed on the injury report, so you'd have to assume that he is ready to go with that illness. But that stuff can change. We've seen that happen with injury reports plenty of times. We know that Marvin Bagley, though, is out for this Sacramento team. At point guard, Jarrett Culver's at 4,100. He has been absolute garbage. 13-point average the last 5 games. Impossible to trust him. While Darren Fox at 8,200. That's a really strong cash option, a 40-point guy most of the time. Corey Joseph, Jordan McLaughlin, not really. Shabazz Napier putting up good numbers, averaging 40 over the last 3. He's getting assists. The matchup's a strong one. 6,200's pretty high, though, for Shabazz. I wouldn't put full trust in that. At shooting guard, Bogdanovic at 5,300. He's still starting overhealed. The production doesn't really justify getting too far behind him. I'd much rather take an Andy Wiggins at 7,000, who has a real history of knocking in big ones against the Kings. He can obviously be inconsistent, while Bud Hield's at 6,200, playing pretty well off the bench. Yeah, close to a cash guy, I think, at that salary, while Kogi is tough to get behind as well. Bazemore, Keelan Martin, no thanks. At small forward, the pencil, Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. He's averaging 12 points in his last 3 games, so you can safely say that he's a strong no from me. Bob Covington's at 55. I like that for Cov. It's a really good price for his level of production. Looks pretty strong to me. And then onto your big men, Nemanja Bjelica's at 6,000. He was really good, and he's been rough, averaging 16 over the last 3, but with still no Holmes and no Bagley. I'm happy to get back on the Bjelica bandwagon for at least one more game and see where this goes. The Undertaker's at 4,700. He had 42 the last game that he played before this illness struck him down with a great sense of might. I'm not really sure that we need to get him as a must-roster guy, but there is some value with Holmesy. With Holmesy still sidelined and Bagley still out. So I think the Undertaker can be looked at there. While Gilesy had 27 in 17 minutes, he could be a GPP option in the case that Dedmon does not play. Karl Anthony Towns is at 10.6. He's a lock for 50 almost every night, so I do like Towns at that sort of salary. The last game of the day for Monday, we're looking at the Spurs and the Clippers. The Clippers are 10-point favorites here, and the total is 227 points. Not a great spread to end the day there, with a real blowout being a possibility. Injury wise, I think we're all pretty good in terms of no questionable guys at this point. DeJounte Murray's at 5,200. He's been exceeding that number. I think the matchup is not bad. Point guards have been doing okay against the Clippers. He's still more of a tournament guy, while Pat Beverley's at 5,200 as well. I'd take DeJounte over Pat, but they're both in that similar zone, while Maximum Derek White's at 46.
Maximum Derek.
He's a little bit harder to rely upon with the rotations. Lou Williams at 6,600 with both Paul George and Kawhi there. A tough guy to really get behind fully. Lonnie Walker, Patty Mills, Landry Shamet, who did fall off with George and Leonard back, aren't probably going to be the options, nor is Bryn Forbes. DeMar DeRozan's at 8,700. That is a way too high price in my mind for this sort of a matchup, while Paul George at 7,800 had 40 points in 25 minutes for the Clippers last time out. That is a really cheap price for Paul. I like that quite significantly. At small forward, the fun guy, Kawhi Leonard.
I'm a fun guy.
He averages 54 against his former team. He's averaging 62 over the last 5. Now, most of those have been without George, so it does take him down a couple of notches. I think he's okay, but he's far from a lock. Rudy Gay and Mo Harkless, no thank you. At the big men spots, Jakob Poeltl, 33 points in 18 minutes last game. He is really, really playing well, but with Aldridge back, his minutes are on the low side, and that's tougher to think that he'll put up those 33 and 18 minutes again. I just don't see that being the case. Aldridge at 6,900.
Giggity.
Really like him at that salary, while Zubats at 42. Cash value only, no real tournament upside. The table Montrezl Harrell at 68 is okay, but I think we can spend that money better in other places. Let's look at some DraftKings guys now. Bjelica, Dedmon, Marvin Williams, LeVert, Herter, Bogdan, Monk, Hayward, Dinwiddie, Kevin Porter, Aldridge, Johnny Collins, Ayton, Valanciunas, Fox. All of those guys have some value with the FanDuel pricing for Monday's games. That'll do it for me, guys. I hope your team won the Super Bowl. I hope you got drunk and ate lots of corn chips and won lots of bets and won lots of DFS stuff, and your fantasy team is going well. Subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Give a comment, leave a thumbs up down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Spencer Dinwiddie.